Hi Booktube and happy Saturday. I wanted to sit down and talk about how my day went. I had initially wanted to do a reading vlog, but that just didn't happen, but there's always tomorrow. But I did want to sit down and talk about all the books that I have read today, and because I spent most of the day reading. I started out my morning by reading King Lear by William Shakespeare. This is part of the Shake-Timber event. So I read this, and then I watched Kelly and Jason's discussion over on Kelly's channel, Books I'm Not Reading. They discussed 4 different movie adaptations, and I've never read the play, never seen any adaptation, and I'm like, I'm gonna watch one of the adaptations tonight, and I'm thinking of going with the Ian Holmes King Lear version, but they all sounded so good, so I'm still waffling on trying to figure that out. But it was fun to see their discussion. Like, they went through each of the characters and voted on which of the adaptations they thought what actor best portrayed each character, and it was so funny hearing their opinions. But as this was the first go around for me with the play, I got a little bit lost with all the characters. I felt like I needed a character chart to like write down who's who, but I was able to get the gist of the story, and then afterwards I looked information up on Wikipedia, like my good old friend Wikipedia, and I understood more of like the full-fleshed story. But this is all about King Lear and his descent into madness. It opens with he has 3 daughters, and he has decided to bequeath his kingdom to them and wants to do it equally, but 2 of the daughters profess this like grand love for him, and so he gives it all to them, and the one who is like, nothing, I carry nothing, she doesn't want to be a part of this, gets excluded from that. And then there's a bunch of battles and deaths, and it's just for sure one of, like, Shakespeare's tragedy plays. But it was very interesting and constant action, and I'll have to report back after I see the adaptation tonight what I think of that. So I started out my morning with this, and then I went on to I wanted to mix it up, so I read the children's book, The Three Sedonas by Lisa, oh my gosh, I can't talk, Lisa Schnebley Heidinger, and it's illustrated by Trevor Swanson. But when I showed this on yesterday's video, Terry, who's another booktuber, I'll try to remember to leave everyone's booktube channel in the description below, but she was talking about how, because I've never been to Sedona, I've always wanted to go, and she was mentioning how the Oak Creek Canyon area would be really worthwhile to see, and it was actually mentioned in the book here, and maybe this is what it looks like, but it says, because this like goes all through the history of Sedona and how he got that name, and like talks about the Native Americans and goes through with the pioneers and whatnot. But when it talks about Oak Creek Canyon, it says there were towers and mountains of rocks that glowed like stone fire, with sky so blue they looked like the ocean. Lots of birds and animals lived there, but it was so quiet you could hear the winds leaping through the tree branches. And that might not be the case now with lots of tourists, but hopefully one day I can see it with my own eyes. But this was really a really fun book to look through. This is like when they were children playing at the creek, and it goes through the different history, like the farmers and whatnot. So it was really prettily illustrated. So there's that. And then I switched to listening to an audiobook because I needed like a break from all the reading with my eyeballs. So I listened to about 30 minutes or so of this book. If you're in my office, It's Already Too Late, A Divorce Lawyer's Guide to Staying Together by James J. Sexton. And it was kind of stressful to listen to. I wanted to like rest my eyeballs, but it wasn't resting my mind, because this is a divorce lawyer's story on how marriages fall apart, and he gives you different scenarios of different people, different clients he's worked with, and just knowing how wrong or how bad things can go, and how like hopeless all of it sounds, it was taking me to a dark place. So I didn't get too much listening on that one, and also like the lawyer part of things. He mentions how people can think wrong of him, depending on what client he is representing, because he talks about he could represent for like the good guy in the marriage or the bad guy, you know, just whoever's, you know, paying his bill, who he's gonna, you know, represent as a client lawyer relationship. And that was interesting to see, because he's talking about how he's gonna spin the story depending on, you know, what side he's representing. Then I switched to, I wanted something light. So I switched to New Girl in Town by Judy Baer, the first book in the Cedar River Daydream series. And I found 3 of these books, 3 of the series, in when I was in Seattle. Maybe at a little free library, I can't remember, or like a used bookstore. But I read about half of this, and I just didn't get on with it. It's very like moralizing and preachy in a way. Like she's this is a young girl, I'm not sure exactly what age she is. I think she's around like 15, and she's like constantly picking up her Bible, and like the way it's talked about, it's like, if you're a teenager, you need to be constantly picking up your Bible and reading it and letting it guide you. And it was just, it felt unrealistic to me. And it also was like just too saccharine. It was too sweet, and it was like to the point of like being completely unbelievable. So I just couldn't get on with it. So I'm gonna be donating all 3 of these books, and then I'll have 3 books off my shelf, and I'll make room for books that, you know, better suit me. And then the last hour or so, I have been reading Gladys Tabor's Still Cove Journal, and here she is on the back. And I knew this was kind of like a sequel to My Own Cape Cod, and this is focusing on her summer house on Cape Cod. And she's more famous for Still Meadow in Connecticut, which is like her farmhouse, her old farmhouse. But in this one, I read the introduction, and this is a compilation of her work from 79 to 81, I want to say. From 78 to 1980, because in the introduction it talks about, you know, she died right before this book was published, like a year before. And so the daughter was collecting all of the notes and things for this book, and so it talks about, you know, how she died and the memorial service they had. So this is interesting to know that this was her last book published, but also like to see her writing later in life, because I've read a lot of Gladys Tabor books that are sprinkled throughout her life. I haven't read any of them in publication order, mainly because they're hard to find, and so if I had to wait to collect each of them in the order that I wanted to read them, then I would never read them. So I've just been picking them up willy-nilly. But yeah, it's interesting to see her later life, and how she talked about going to the doctor's office all the time, and like the friends, she's constantly making friends with everyone, like the storekeeper and the people that work at the gas station, the post office, and the different secretaries. But I just wanted to read you the opening paragraph here of her book, because I know I've talked about Gladys Tabor quite a bit on my channel, but I just thought I'd give a taste for the writing. And it's also illustrated, and there's birds, and let's see, there's little pictures throughout, and it's just like nice, like, and quiet and like peaceful. And there's one of her cat here, yeah, her cat Amber, that she mentions quite a bit in her books, whether they're fully Amber cat focused or not, because I have a collection on my shelf here of, she wrote 2 books about her cat, and I haven't read either one of them, but I have a bind up for both of them. But yeah, anyway, so I just thought I would read the very first paragraph here, and this is a book that's going to take you all the way throughout the year, but it starts in April. Like, her books never start in January, they start in random months. And she even talks about how she decides to start her book in April because that's when she thinks the new year starts. She's like, January is still deep in the middle of winter. That is not the start of a new year. So in her, even though the calendar says January, in her mind it's April. So it starts out with, spring has a fairy tale quality. When it finally comes misting the earth with green, we talk about it all through the winter months. But when the mystery of growth renews itself, we find it hard to believe. The grass would be miracle enough, but buds began to swell on the lilacs. Delicate leaves lace the trees. Crocuses set the table for April, with gold and purple cups. Daffodils were a wonder in March simply because they poked their lance tips above the ice at my doorstep. But now they wear proud, ruffled blossoms, and everyone who comes stops to greet them. So yeah, I just wanted to give you a taste for her writing. But yeah, I really am happy to be sitting down tonight and reading this book, and sometimes in the end of each chapter in this book, she is talking about different recipes. And so that had me digging into the cookbook that I have from her Still Meadow cookbook. And this is a picture of her own kitchen, and then in the back as well, it has like the fireplace, this old-timey fireplace. And I'm kicking myself because when I purchased this book, there was another book, one of her cookbooks on the shelf, and I just got this one. I should have got both. I don't know what I was thinking. But one of the recipes talked about in Still Meadow Cove is an Indian pudding, and how she was getting a letter from a reader asking, like, you pour cold milk over the Indian pudding. And so I looked up the recipe, and some of these are can be hard to follow along, because I haven't cooked anything from this cookbook yet, but it can be very sparse instructions. And so, like, you have ingredients, for example, for Indian pudding, it's like it's like 4 cups milk and blah 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 blah, and so the instructions say boil the milk and add your flour and your ingredients and all of that, and then when you pour it into your baking container, add a cup of milk on top. And so it's like, is it you're boiling 3 cups and then you're using that 1 cup as over top, or are you using all 4 cups and there's an additional 5th cup that's not mentioned in the ingredients list? So it can be a little bit confusing, but I do like how often her recipes have little comments from her. So she has, like, you know, it's very simple. There's no pictures or anything, but it has the name of the dish, the ingredients, and the instructions, which often is just like one little paragraph. But then sometimes there's little comments from her. For example, this one is Austrian potatoes, and it says cottage cheese and sour cream have an affinity for potatoes. Just plain baked potatoes taste better with either spooned over. Don't cut baked potatoes open with a knife. Squeeze them gently until they fall open. So there's like random things. So like for onion pilaf, her comment says, Jill used to make this in the electric skillet unless the oven was on for something else. Keep heat low if you do, and add more moisture if needed. So sometimes it can be a little bit vague. You have to like go based on, you know, how the dish is looking at the time, because often, like I've seen when I was looking through this, even cookie recipes don't have how long you need to bake them. It's like bake until lightly brown. So that get to, you know, depending on the size of the cookie or what's in there, it could be 8 minutes or 10 or 12. Like she doesn't give you any instructions to go with there. So some of it's like just going by feeling, like using your judgment. And this for sure is not for beginners, because it's not holding your hand at all in that aspect. But yeah, it's been fun flipping through this, and I need to actually stand in the kitchen and make one of them. But anyway, that's my update for tonight. I'm gonna have some dinner and then and watch one of the adaptations. Yep, for King Lear. And so yeah, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Hopefully it'll be a vlog. We'll see. If not, it'll just be another reading update. But I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, BookTube.